Chapter 2351. This is my first time seeing a celebrity bring her family members to a show, ROFL. Zoe was right. What's the fun when they invite ordinary people who are not famous in the entertainment industry onto the show? This show is really boring. Then allow me to enlighten you, you dumbass. Daisy's eldest brother, Wayne Goldman, once shot commercials with one of the best actors to ever grace the industry in the past. He was quite a popular child actor back then. If he were to have made his debut just like Daisy did, you wouldn't even have this chance to showcase your massive ego. Daisy did not lose her cool, but gave off a smile instead. You can bring your family members too. Zoe's expression dimmed as Waylon and Helios brought out the food, and Denzel then placed the dessert on the table. The dishes looked mouth-watering, there were snacks and desserts, and when they were paired with tea and other beverages, they tasted scrumptious. Hannah was surprised. Isn't this afternoon tea a little too high, class? Did you make it, Mr. Boucher? I'm only the sous chef. Helios placed his hand on Waylon's shoulder. Wayne here is the head chef. Daisy replied, Wayne's cooking skills are top-notch. This is rather fake. The eldest son of the Goldmans can actually cook? With his precious status and all their servants at home, does he even need to take a single step into the kitchen? Why does this plot feel a little off? This is just an effect that the show wants. Why would you believe in everything that a variety show shows you? Daisy fetched Hannah a snack. Hannah took a bite, and her eyes instantly lit up. Holy moly! This is really delicious. She also fetched Denzel a piece, and Denzel nodded politely. Thank you. Lastly, Daisy fetched a snack for Zoe, but she ignored her and asked Denzel to grab her the snack. Her actions evoked dissatisfaction from Daisy's fans, who frantically attacked her for being so petty in the comment section. Upon seeing all the comments that flooded the comment section, Zoe's fans felt bad for their idol and scolded Daisy's fans. It had only been less than a day ever since the broadcast started, and the comment section was already on fire. Waylon sat beside Cameron and placed a snack on her plate. Seeing this, Cameron leaned closer to him and lowered her voice. You'd better watch your actions. We're on live TV. Waylon chuckled, peeled off the peel of an orange segment, and delivered it to her mouth. Open up. Cameron looked at everyone present carefully and hurriedly ate the orange upon seeing no one was looking in her direction. After the afternoon tea was over, it was time to prepare dinner. The ingredients needed for dinner had to be bought by the guests at a market nearby, and a group of 3 had been arranged to go out to get ingredients. Probably because Daisy and Zoe were stirring up too much public opinion, the director could only arrange for Waylon, Cameron, and Denzel to go out together to buy the ingredients. Because it was during the show's recording and shooting, the crew staff also arranged for security and a few crew members to go out with them. The market was very large, and it had everything. Waylon was very competent as he carefully selected all the ingredients needed, including seafood. Cameron saw a large lobster crawling in the water and was about to reach out to touch it, but Waylon stopped her. Cameron frowned. Why are you stopping me from touching it? He said solemnly, I'm afraid you'll kill it. She pouted and stopped talking. All of a sudden, Denzel scuffed the bag with the side of his feet. He then looked down and jumped behind Waylon in fright. Waylon turned around. What's wrong? Snake, there are snakes. Denzel's face paled with fright as he trembled from head to toe. The shop owner laughed and explained in an accent, these aren't snakes, but eels instead. Don't worry. They don't bite. Denzel stood behind Waylon and Cameron and did not dare take another step nearer the stall. He was so terrified that he was missing a part of his soul when he got shocked by what he saw. It was a bag of slimy and long creatures. Anyone who saw it should feel at least slightly disgusted. Cameron squatted down to take a closer look at the eels and even reached out to touch them. These eels really don't bite. Waylon stared at her with a helpless expression. Chapter 2352. A woman who's afraid of mice is actually not afraid of eels. Dan is so scared that he almost cried, ha ha ha. That lady is really brave, huh? She's touching eels with her bare hands. Ha ha ha, what should I do if I find this young lady rather cute? Am I seeing it wrong? Or does Wayne's gaze look rather doting? The three of them walked around the market for about 2 hours and bought a lot of ingredients. Waylon was the only person picking all the ingredients all the way, while Cameron and Denzel followed him around as if they did not know anything about choosing good raw ingredients. Not only did they not help out, but they were also dragging Waylon's progression in the market. The fans were so happy to be able to mock Waylon for bringing two useless underlings along. It was already 7 p.m. when they arrived home after buying the ingredients. Daisy and Helios were waiting for them at the door, and they helped to bring some of the ingredients into the kitchen. Waylon slowly rolled up his sleeves. Daisy will wash all the ingredients, and Uncle Helios will be my sous chef. Helios responded with a smile, all right. Daisy was also very motivated, leave all the ingredients to me. Hannah followed into the kitchen. I can help to cut the vegetables. Waylon nodded. Denzel scratched his cheeks and looked slightly embarrassed. Then, is there anything that I can do? Waylon looked at him, can you beat some eggs for me? Denzel replied with a smile, I can do that. Cameron pointed at herself at the moment, what about me? I can't just stand here and do nothing. Things will get very awkward very quickly. Waylon narrowed his eyes and fastened his apron slowly. When the dishes are ready, you'll bring them out and serve them. Cameron crossed her arms and responded, oh, okay. Ha ha ha, the young lady looks very reluctant. Oh no, oh my, are you telling me that the eldest son of the Goldmans really knows how to cook? I'll be damned, is it true? Fortunately, the kitchen space was large enough, and everyone worked according to the division of labor. After washing the ingredients, Daisy handed them to Hannah. Hannah could cook too, so cutting vegetables was not a difficult task for her. And Denzel, who was standing right next to her, cracked the eggs into a glass bowl and beat them meticulously. The camera team pointed the camera at Waylon and recorded how he went from turning on the stove, heating the pan, adding oil and ingredients, to stir-frying with a wooden spoon. The whole process looked smooth, clean, and clear-cut. When others were acting anxiously in the kitchen, Waylon's movements looked very calm and steady, as if he was working from the comfort of his own home. He showcased his skills in frying, steaming, braising, and many more. There was almost nothing that he could not do in the kitchen. The comment section exploded instantly, and the number of fans in the broadcast room increased to 700,000 and continued to rise. Holy shit! Daisy's brother is so cool. Those who claimed that the crew bought the afternoon tea from a nearby hotel earlier today, it's time for you to come forward and smack your face. Wayne even knows walk tossing, while I can't even hold my spatula and pan steadily. I'm really good for nothing. Boo-hoo-hoo. Daisy's eldest brother is so good-looking and can cook at the same time, I'm so envious. Today is another day when I want to divorce my husband. Just half a day after they started shooting, the director saw that there were already 900,000 fans watching in the live broadcast room, and the number was still rising, and he was very excited. Mr. Hannigan does have very keen eyes. He really didn't recommend the wrong guests. It was almost 9 p.m. Apart from the soup, all the other dishes were already on the dining table, smelling and looking good. Denzel was shocked. Mr. Goldman, you're truly amazing. His skills are comparable to those of a chef from a 5-star hotel. Daisy laughed. Wayne has always been amazing. Helios said, all right, everyone should be very tired after such a busy day. Let's sit down and eat first. Everyone came to the table. The lights in the courtyard were bright, and under the starry night sky, the inn felt very boisterous as it was filled with excitement. After dinner, the crew members asked the guests to draw lots to determine who would be the one who would get to draw tomorrow's mission. The person who got the shortest straw would be the one to draw the mission, and the unlucky one was Denzel. Denzel got up, picked up a mission card, opened it, and was astonished. Hannah asked with a smile, what's the mission? Chapter 2353. The crew behind the show can be this ruthless, huh? Denzel scratched his head, walked back to his seat, and handed the mission card to Hannah. Hannah took a glance at it and was stunned as well. Daisy leaned over. "What is it?" The words sugarcane harvesting immediately shocked her. The director said, "So, after everyone has finished eating and drinking, please have a good rest tonight. You'll then have to get up at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning and gather at the doorstep of the inn. You must try to fill up 5 carts before 1 p.m. Hannah and Denzel started worrying as soon as they got the task. "How are we going to collect 5 carts of sugarcane?" Daisy raised her hand and asked, "Do we have to do it ourselves?" The people in the crew exchanged gazes and did not speak. The director then explained, "You can't ask others to help, and the 6 of you must come up with a way to complete the task." Daisy was astonished, and a hint of slyness flashed across her eyes. Cameron had been eating silently in the corner from start to finish. She then remembered something all of a sudden and raised her head. "Is the soup ready? I seem to smell its aroma already." In fact, she had long forgotten that they were still on a live program. Everyone looked at her dumbfounded. Waylon clenched his hand slightly into a fist and pressed it against his lips, holding back his laughter. LMAO, this lady is never on the same page. When others are discussing how they should harvest the sugarcane tomorrow, she only cares about whether the soup has finished cooking already. Even Mr. Goldman is on the brink of bursting into laughter, isn't he? Trust me, I can live with this lady and be happy for the rest of my life. It should be ready already. Daisy got up. "I'll go take a look." Among the guests, Zoe was extremely silent. She never understood why her sponsor would want her to participate in this variety show. And the main issue was that Daisy was also there. They clearly know that Daisy and I had disputes before this because of a fight over a character, but they still insisted on me participating in this show. This is disgusting. As long as the other guests are acting gregariously, I won't fit in and play along. In this way, my fans will think that Daisy is isolating me together with the other guests. The soup is ready. Daisy came out with a pot. Hannah quickly made room for her. "Be careful." Cameron fiddled with her silverware, and her fork accidentally slipped out of her hand and fell to the floor. When she bent down to pick it up, she noticed someone's sneaky actions. When Daisy was about to bring the pot to the table, a leg under the table was stretched out on purpose, trying to trip her. Cameron picked up a small pebble from the ground and flicked it toward the person's leg. Zoe's calf suddenly hurt, and she cried out as she abruptly retracted her leg and covered her calf. Daisy stopped and looked at her in confusion. "Is there anything wrong?" Everyone else stared at Zoe too. Zoe gnashed her teeth. "I'm fine." She raised her head inadvertently and just so happened to meet the smug gaze from Cameron, the person sitting across from her. Cameron raised her eyebrows and deliberately showed her the pebble in between her fingertips. Zoe's expression slightly changed, and she looked away instantly, not daring to face her directly. Fuck, I got busted. As the night sky got darker, everyone finished their meal, cleaned up the dining table, did the dishes, and went back to their respective rooms to rest. Zoe shared a guest room with Hannah, Helios and Denzel shared another guest room, Daisy and Cameron slept in their own room, and Waylon slept alone in his bedroom. When Cameron was about to fall asleep, she vaguely felt someone standing beside her and instantly opened her eyes. However, her mouth was covered before she could make a sound. Under the dim light from the courtyard, Cameron clearly saw the person in front of her and took his hand away. She turned her head and glanced at Daisy, who was sleeping with her back facing her, then glared at Waylon and lowered her voice. "Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? And what the heck are you doing here?" Wayne shushed her. "I'm here to bring you somewhere. You'll definitely like it." Chapter 2354. Wayland pulled Cameron up. She grabbed her coat, and the two quietly left the room. Walking into the backyard, Cameron was sleepy and cold. "Where are you taking me?" He took her hand and walked in front of her, leading her. "We're almost there." Cameron yawned and followed him. "Dude, we have to get up early tomorrow." However, when she saw the fireflies in the garden, she woke up in an instant. The fireflies that were gathered in one place looked like the stars in the dark sky, adorning the darkness in the garden. Cameron walked over. "Why are there so many fireflies?" He looked back at her. "This isn't something that you see every day, is it?" Cameron stretched out her hand, intending to touch them, and the fluorescent lights scattered instantly. The lights lingered around her, and she laughed. "This is so pretty." Waylon stopped beside her. "I didn't lie to you, did I?" Cameron turned her head around, looked at him, and laughed. "Just how boring can you be? You actually choose not to sleep in the middle of the night and bring me out here to see fireflies. Watching fireflies is not the point here." After saying that, he tilted his head and fixed his eyes on Cameron. Cameron was slightly startled and stared at him. Seeing that Waylon was approaching her, she shrugged, and her eyelashes twitched. "You don't mess around. We have to get up very early tomorrow." He chuckled all of a sudden. "What do you think I'll do?" Cameron lowered her head and did not utter a single word. Waylon took her into his arms. "You're the one who's been messing around. What did you do today?" She frowned. "What did I do?" Waylon's lips got closer to her cheek, to the extent that they were inches away from touching her temple, and his voice sounded hoarse. "I saw everything." Cameron seemed to understand what he was talking about, but she was confident. "Then you should thank me. If it weren't for me, your sister would have been scalded." He smiled hoarsely and pressed his warm lips against her forehead. Then, how should I thank my little Cam?" She murmured, "Who is yours to own?" Waylon held her cheek in his palm and was about to kiss her. "Your name is on my marriage certificate." "If you're not mine, then to whom do you belong?" His question and tone made her blush. Cameron licked her lips to moisturize them. "I'm going back to bed already." Waylon brushed her lips with his thumb. "Good night then." Cameron stood still. "Did he just bid me good night? Is that it?" Waylon chuckled. "Are you waiting for me?" As soon as he said that, a hint of warmth spread across her lips as he pecked her on the lips. Cameron wrapped her arms around his neck, and Waylon was stunned for a moment. His palms then brushed through the ends of her hair and clung to the back of her head as if he was about to embed his lips into her face. For a long time, his eyes dimmed. "You're really good at torturing others." She actually chose to torture him at this time when he could not do anything to her. Cameron pushed him away with a trace of smugness on her face. "I'll leave you to it. Please, do enjoy." She then fled the scene quickly. As for when Cameron left her room last night and when she returned to the room, Daisy did not notice it at all. At 7 a.m., all the guests were woken up by a knock on the door. At 8 a.m., after breakfast, apart from Daisy, all the other guests and the crew members arrived at the sugarcane field on time, while other crew members drove 5 pickup carts to the side of the field and pulled them over by the roadside. Hannah looked around. "Where's Daisy?" Cameron yawned. She was too sleepy. Zoe looked at the huge sugarcane field, crossed her arms, and asked disdainfully, "Why do we have to do all the hard work while Daisy can just disappear without reason? Is this a special privilege that the crew promised Daisy?" When everyone heard Zoe's speculation, their expressions turned complicated. After all, it was a live broadcast. From where did she muster the courage to evoke the public's dissatisfaction and badmouth Daisy's name? Chapter 2355. What was more, Daisy's brother and Helios were also present. The audience deemed Zoe's behavior unacceptable, and most of them started commenting in the comment section. "Zoe the clown is really doing all she can to gain popularity, huh?" The director frowned. He originally planned to suspend the recording, but unexpectedly, the broadcast room suddenly gained countless views. Do the netizens love Zoe's drama this much? Hannah put on her gloves calmly, turned her head, and said to the people beside her with a smile, "Daisy might have killed someone's father in her previous life." That was awkward. Denzel smiled awkwardly. Everyone present was his senior in the industry, so he did not dare to say anything. Helios and Waylon had really good control over their temper, so they did not let their emotions surface. They obviously did not plan to respond to any of Zoe's comments and would only focus on the task at hand. The audience was mocking Zoe at the moment. After waiting for a while, Daisy arrived in a hurry and brought everyone at the scene coffee, including all the program crew members. This scene was praised by many netizens, saying that it was very heartwarming to see. Naturally, Zoe's fans started complaining about Daisy's actions in order to protect their idol. Isn't what she's doing a form of bribery? It's obvious that Miss Vanderbilt doesn't want to work. Zoe has been wronged. She was telling the truth, but all she got in return were the complaints that came from Daisy's brainless fans. I feel you, Zoe. Denzel brought a cup of coffee to Zoe out of kindness, but Zoe did not accept it and exclaimed loudly, "We're here to work, not to travel. It's already 10 a.m. When will the 5 carts be filled with sugarcane?" Daisy looked at Zoe and wondered. It's just 5 carts of sugarcane. It can't get any simpler. It won't take more than 2 hours. At this time all the netizens lost their cool, questioning and mocking Daisy. Princess Vanderbilt must have never harvested sugarcane. The target that she just set for the group is ridiculous. 5 carts of sugarcane. If the 7 of them can fill it up in under 2 hours, I'll eat my keyboard, as expected of Princess Vanderbilt. All she does is speak without thinking. Zoe laughed out loud when she saw Daisy set such an unrealistic target for the group of 7. What a joke, Daisy Vanderbilt. Do you think we can finish harvesting all the sugarcane in under 2 hours? We only have 7 people here. Who else do you think will help us with the task? Daisy smiled. We don't need help from anyone else. After saying that, she turned around and glanced at the director. Sir, you're the one who claimed yesterday that we only need to collect 5 carts of sugarcane. As for how we plan to accomplish the task, you won't limit our method and creativity, right? The director regained his senses and replied, yes, that's up to you to find a way. Zoe crossed her arms. Who in the world can come up with a way to fill up 5 carts with sugarcane in under 2 hours? Daisy Vanderbilt, you're the only naive one here. Daisy raised her eyebrows. Okay, I'll prove it to you today. She waved and motioned for the villagers to drive the 5 pickup carts into the field. Just when everyone did not know what was happening, Daisy walked up to an automatic harvester, picked up its operation panel, and started controlling it. After a series of button pressing, the harvester's engine ignited, and it slowly moved toward the sugarcane field. Everyone gathered around. Cameron and Hannah exclaimed, "Holy moly! This is an unmanned harvester. This is awesome." Helios turned to look at Waylon. When did Daisy learn how to control something like that? Waylon laughed. Don't ask me. I don't even know that. Daisy used the operation panel to control the harvester. It pushed to lift the slanted sugarcane into an upright position, cut them, gathered them, and placed them onto the conveyor belt located at the back of the harvester. The conveying device would then peel off the leaves on the surface of the sugarcane, which was extremely practical. A large acre worth of sugarcane was neatly harvested and gathered in a matter of minutes, which was more efficient than a group of people pulling and cutting the plants by hand. It improved the efficiency of the process too. As for Daisy, she did not even need to be in the sugarcane field. All she needed to do was stand on the side of the road, and everything else could be achieved remotely through the operation panel. Chapter 2356. Even the director and the entire crew were shocked. One of the crew members suddenly handed a tablet to him. You need to see this. There were over 1 million viewers on the live broadcast, and it was still climbing. It was very popular. The viewers kept liking the video and applauding the improvement and use of technology in agriculture. After half an hour, the sugar canes were all harvested. Using human labor to harvest was less efficient and labor-intensive. It was obvious that technology was able to fulfill the need to replace that. After the harvest, the people of the village applauded and praised Daisy. She's a fast learner. Daisy bowed toward them humbly. These are all from your hard work. Thank you for giving us a chance to see how well agricultural machinery has advanced. There's a lot more that we need to learn. Cameron leaned close to Waylon and whispered, "Your sister is unbelievable." Daisy increased the productivity of agriculture with the help of technology and was able to promote both technology and the agriculture industry during the live broadcast. It definitely helped improve everyone's knowledge about them. Waylon looked at her and smiled. She has always been smart. Cameron agreed. Anyone would love a hard-working sister. Waylon leaned in close to her. She's your sister too. Cameron elbowed him. He didn't feel anything but gave a broad smile. Everyone was enjoying the happy mood, but an unhappy voice spoke up. She broke the rules. Everyone looked toward Zoe. Hannah scratched her ears and said, "Why is she everywhere?" Zoe pointed at Daisy. "You used a machine, so it doesn't count as experiencing hard labor. You're just finding an excuse for your laziness. How many farmers would have lost their jobs if they all relied on machinery like you? How much does a machine cost? Would any farmer be able to afford it?" The place was silent, not because she made sense, but because they were rendered speechless. Even the crew members almost burst out laughing. Who was the naive one? Daisy looked at her and broke the silence after a short pause. "Zoe, are you looking down on technology?" She stammered. "I'm not looking down. Sugarcane is found in tropical or warm regions and is the raw material for sucrose. Ethanol can be extracted as an energy substitute too. Previously, harvesting sugarcane was done by labor and used a primitive chopping method. The shipment and process consume a huge amount of labor. Especially with the rapid development of the economy in recent years, labor costs have increased continuously." She then smiled and asked, "Do you know that this has caused the continuous decline of earnings for the industry?" Zoe's face dropped, and she couldn't answer. "You never paid attention to the development of agriculture, so you think that everything requires labor, but that was all before the economy and tech matured. Agricultural development is no longer like it was in the past, especially regarding technology. Technology plays a fundamental role in promoting agriculture, effectively improving labor efficiency and resource utilization while reducing production costs. If technology is advancing, why is your brain degenerating?" Zoe was so badly called out she tossed her gloves away and ran away crying. The director immediately sent someone to go after her. Chapter 2357. However, they couldn't stop the live broadcast. When they go back to the old mansion, Hannah and Cameron were having a great time chatting. They had gotten close when Cameron asked her, "What's going on between Zoe and Daisy?" Hannah clicked her tongue and replied, "What else?" They were fighting for the same role, but she didn't get it because the director preferred Daisy. Going after the same character was very common in the industry. Many artists had feuds because of this, but they weren't doing it as obviously as Zoe. They would just do it on the down low. Cameron held her chin. "She's so salty. It's just a role." Fighting for a role in the industry meant they were fighting for a job. It's as if you worked hard to get a role, and everyone thought that it would go to you, but not only did you not end up with it, but you were also demoted to a supporting role. Everyone in the industry wants their next role, to propel them to stardom and rake in money. No one would be happy if they lost the role. Cameron turned to see Daisy, who was standing next to Helios. "She's pretty lucky, then. She's the princess of the Goldman family. The family would be willing to provide her with any resources she needs. Everyone else might need to work for decades to get their break, so she really is quite lucky when it comes to this." Hannah smiled after lamenting. "I used to think the same way, but after working with her for the past few years, I realized that the Goldmans never got involved with her career. If Daisy wanted to be famous, she could have worked with Royal Crown. She would have been at the top even sooner if she had worked with her own company. Daisy wasn't considered the best in the industry, but she had a stable standing as an A-lister with her title of Best Actress. To the elites, she was just the daughter of an investor. A lot of celebrities wanted to be actors and stars at the same time, but all Daisy wanted was to act. One thing that Hannah knew that others didn't was that she wasn't paid as well as the top actors. Helios was paid almost $15 million when he was her age and was the highest paid actor. Daisy was paid at most $700,000. That was a huge difference. That was why Hannah didn't mind too much about Daisy asking her to apologize in public in the past. She felt that it was the right thing to do. Soon after that, the director and the crew members got back. Helios went to ask about Zoe. The director said, "Zoe pulled out from the show, but it was my fault. I didn't know that she was so extreme." Helios smiled. "She's still young. Once she gains more experience, she will understand the industry's rules better." The filming lasted a week before it finally came to an end. Zoe was criticized badly because of her performance on the show. At the same time, the unmanned automatic sugarcane harvester that Daisy promoted also became so popular they were sold out. Even the posters were switched to those with Daisy's endorsement. All the other guests on the show had a surge of new fans, especially Cameron and Waylon. People started requesting for them to go on talk shows. When they returned to Bassburg, it was Charm's 1-month birthday celebration. Charm's party was held at the Goldman Mansion. It was an open-air party with adorable decorations in pastel colors. The attendees were clients and close friends of the Goldmans. Chapter 2358. Nolan, Maisie, and Nicholas were greeting the guests. Titus cradled Charm while Yael and Christina were playing with her. "Look at that." The second son started the baby training. Thomas Clifford walked down the stairs along with Jackie and Violet. Titus smirked. "Because he is my great-grandson." Thomas sighed. "Time flies. I'm actually surprised that you're still around." Titus glared at him. "Are you cursing me, you old fart?" Thomas was used to the bickering. "Even Hernandez is still around." "I guess it's not your turn yet." Maisie and Nolan walked over. "Jackie, Violet." Violet smiled and walked to Maisie. "It's been a while." Maisie and Violet started catching up while Nolan and Jackie stood where they were. "Your son isn't here?" Jackie chuckled. "Not worried that he might ruin your party?" The youngest, Clifford, was very cheeky because Thomas spoiled him. When children his age were still being protected and playing with toys, he was already on trees, poking at beehives. Jackie had once brought him to a classmate's party, and that kid made the birthday boy cry over a cake. The present he had brought was a trick box. Jackie almost never brought him to parties after that to avoid embarrassment. Nolan slowly sipped on his wine while looking over at Titus. "You can try letting my grandfather take care of your kid." Jackie smirked. "Forget it. I'm afraid that I might lose my son." Meanwhile, Maisie, Barbara, and Violet chatted until Colton walked in with Freya. Barbara suddenly smiled. "I'm so jealous of you, Maisie." Maisie asked, "Why?" Barbara and Violet looked at each other. "Because you're a mother-in-law at a young age, and now you're a grandmother too. I think we're only going to be mothers-in-law in our 50s or 60s and grandmothers when we turn 70. Maisie chuckled. "I guess it's because I met Nolan too soon." Violet looked around. "Is Riley not here yet?" Barbara swirled her wine around. "She's living in Slokova with Louis, so I don't think she's coming back. Even if she misses this party, there are weddings." There were 3 children that hadn't had their weddings yet. At the mention of weddings, Violet looked at Maisie. "Have all your 3 children registered for their marriage?" Maisie sighed. "Only Daisy and Nolly are sealed. Waylon and Cameron are registered, but I'm not sure what's going on with them. Colton proposed to Freya, but they're not officially married yet." Violet and Barbara were shocked. "What?" Freya stood next to Colton. She wasn't used to a big party like this, having to meet guests of the Goldmans who came to congratulate them. Colton put his arm around her waist. "Are you tired?" She shook her head and smiled. "Is your family not attending?" asked someone. When Freya heard it, she wrapped her hand tightly around the wineglass and didn't speak. Both sides of the family should have been at the party, but only the Goldmans were there. The man who asked was an owner of a building material distribution company, Mr. Weatherby. He probably never met anyone from Freya's side and was saying that there was nothing special about her. She was only able to marry a Goldman because of her beauty. Chapter 2359. The Goldmans were more than any other affluent family in Bassburg. Everyone would be curious about the person who married into the family if they were somebody. How could Freya's family be absent? Everyone's expressions changed. Anyone who paid attention to the news would know why. Those who didn't might talk about it. Mr. Weatherby didn't notice how the atmosphere changed and pressed on upon seeing how Freya didn't reply. Did something important come up, and your family couldn't come because of that? How could they miss a party so important? Even if your relatives were busy, your parents should be here. Freya pressed her lips together and was going to speak when Colton held her hand and calmly said, "I'm glad everyone is able to attend my daughter's party. My wife is married to me and is now a Goldman. If you can't even respect her, we shouldn't have any more dealings in the future. Don't you think so, Mr. Weatherby?" Mr. Weatherby wasn't expecting Colton to be so protective of his wife. He was from a famous family and had to be careful with what he said. He only thought the woman was marrying up and wasn't respected in the family. Even when he was given a warning in public, he had to let it go because it was against a Goldman. Colton guided Freya away. Freya turned to look at him. Her heart warmed when she remembered how he protected her. "Thank you. There's no need. I just don't like the way they are. They would always find the person they thought was weak and step on them. He looked down on people like that." Nicholas asked Colton to go over, so he said to Freya, "Wait here. I'll be back." She nodded and stood alone among the crowd as he walked away. The more Mr. Weatherby thought about it, the angrier he got, so he drank a glass too many. When he saw Freya standing alone and that Colton wasn't around, he had to confront her. She was a woman who gave birth before even getting married. He wouldn't believe that the Goldmans, aside from Colton, would respect a woman with no background. Freya looked at her watch and thought that Daisy and the rest would be there soon. "Mrs. Goldman?" Freya turned around, and it was Mr. Weatherby again. She didn't want to make it a big issue because it was an important occasion, so she nodded politely. "Yes, Mr. Weatherby?" He smiled. "I shouldn't have said that just now. I hope you forgive me." Freya thought he was apologizing, so she said, "Don't worry, I didn't take it to heart." "Good then. But you look really young, around 23 or 24? Mr. Weatherby looked at her from head to toe with bad intentions. "That's how you kept your figure after giving birth." Freya was offended, so she narrowed her eyes. "I'm going to walk away if there's nothing important, Mr. Weatherby." She was going to leave when he stood in front of her. "Where's the fire?" "I'm here to apologize." After that, he poured Freya a glass of wine. "I'm showing respect, so you should show some too. Drink with me?" Freya thought it was just a drink, so she nodded and took the glass from him. Chapter 2360. No one expected Mr. Weatherby to suddenly grab Freya's hand and rub it. Freya pulled her hand back too hard, the glass dropped to the ground, and the noise attracted everyone's attention. Mr. Weatherby took his chance and started to pretend that she was the problem. "Mrs. Goldman, I've apologized, so even if you don't want to forgive me, there's no need to act this way." Freya clenched her jaw. "You're not apologizing. You're... Look at this woman. She's not even married into the family yet, but she's already throwing tantrums." I apologized to her, but she pushed the glass away. He didn't give Freya a chance to speak and kept adding fuel to the fire. He was going to push Freya into a corner. Freya balled up her fist. She didn't want to start anything at her daughter's party, but why was he forcing her? Mr. Weatherby saw that she wasn't fighting back and guessed that she didn't have the guts to do it. If she said he molested her, he would just say she tried to seduce him. Maisie walked out from the crowd. "What's going on?" Mr. Weatherby immediately walked toward her to complain. "Mrs. Goldman, look at what happened." Not only did your daughter-in-law reject my apology, but she also slapped the wine glass I handed to her away. It's a happy occasion that you're celebrating today, and I don't want to make a scene, but what is the meaning of this? Nolan noticed something was happening, so he walked over and heard Mr. Weatherby point out what Freya did wrong to Maisie. Mr. Weatherby sounded confident and said that he was treated badly. Everyone who didn't see what happened thought Freya had done what he said she did. Freya clenched her jaw but relaxed a moment later. I would accept your apology, but why did you have to grab my hand? Mr. Weatherby froze. He didn't expect her to tell the truth. Everyone gasped, and Maisie's face dropped. Nonsense, I didn't grab your hand. He continued. Please don't accuse me like this. You're Coleman Goldman's wife. How could you say such a thing? I think it's more like you who were trying to seduce me. Saying that at a party held by the Goldmans meant that he was challenging them. Any family would be upset if this happened to them. Mr. Weatherby thought he knew how they would react. No matter how nice the daughter-in-law was, all the family members would just start avoiding her if she caused a scene. Freya looked at him and was already calmer than she was a minute ago. She smirked. Me? Seducing you? You're old enough to be my father. Why would I give up on the handsome man I'm with to seduce an old fart like you? You're nothing compared to my husband. Do you think you can get your way just because my family isn't here to help me? Mr. Weatherby turned pale. He never expected her to be such a strong character. After what she said, everyone could tell who was the one who was lying without having to think twice. Maisie was going to speak, but Nolan stopped her. Colton was already standing behind Mr. Weatherby, and he had heard everything. His eyes were chillingly cold.